way. So imagine you're a football program, Georgia State, and you've started spring practice and the spring game because your head coach leaving to take a coordinator's job. Shawn Elliott, the head coach at Georgia State, resigned to become the tight ends, not even a coordinator's job, the tight ends coach at South Carolina in the SEC. 2 days into spring practices at Georgia State, the Brendan Marcello said he'd never seen anything like this before. We've seen the movement, and then this went a couple of days into practice.
Yeah, this has been a trend this offseason of guys leaving, non-power conference teams to go take lesser jobs, head coaches taking lesser jobs, or even, power team to power team in the case of Chip Kelly. The game is changing. And also, look, if you can get that opportunity to get on a power staff, I think the guys are taking it, seeing how quickly, the cycle is turning for them, and it's more money. You probably have better support. The way that recruiting is going to go, even in a place like Georgia State that's in Atlanta and a pretty fertile recruiting ground, especially for the kind of prospects that you can get at a Georgia State, it's still really hard. So it's probably, even though that you've got higher expectations, being on the staff at an SEC school, being the tight end coach at South Carolina is probably maybe a little bit easier of a gig right now than being the head coach at Georgia State. So yeah, it's such a strange thing to see. Like the South Alabama coach Kane Womack joined Kalen DeBoer's staff, all the things that have gone on, but it is a different world in college coaching now, so the old rules don't really apply.
Yeah, I think this is a gray story, and I've seen a lot of people want to make it black or white, and I think that more and more of these stories are gray stories. I saw the obvious assumption that, this is the death of college football, another guy who's not able or does not want to deal with the NIL aspects of being a head coach and the recruiting and all of that, and just making a logical choice to go make pretty much the same amount of money and have less on your plate at a bigger school with brighter lights and maybe better opportunities down the line. So that's logical, and that's what some guys have chosen to do this offseason. We've seen instances where it does appear that just the grind of being a head coach and NIL issues and things like that are just too much. Guys just don't want to deal with it, right? To what extent that's like a trend or that's going to be the case more often, I don't think we really know that yet, but I think we've seen at least some examples. Now, are they enough examples to say that it's a major problem, that college football is in trouble, that coaches don't want to coach and be head coaches anymore? No, I think we need some more time to play out to really know whether that's the case or not. But there's at least some seedlings being planted that you have to wonder, and it's okay to wonder if that is the case. I've seen the other side, especially when it comes to this story of here's a guy who's basically just saving face because their records weren't great as of late, and he's getting out before, you end up getting the axe at the end of what might not be a very good year. And I've read Bud Elliott in particular got almost like defensive weirdly over people wanting to paint this as an NIL type of a move and pointing out, all the reasons why this is just a guy getting out before he gets fired. I think it's not exactly that. I don't think it's exactly all the NIL. I think it does lie somewhere in the middle. So if you want to choose a side, that's fine. But I think you can kind of take what you want from this. But it is odd to see that. It's unfortunate for that program to have to deal with this. Just the timing of it is awful. And I don't know what your market looks like now trying to go turn around and find somebody else to run the program. So I think we need some more evidence on the whole head coaches making what looked to be sideways or downward moves, joining other programs and taking coordinator-type roles. And then there's also realities. There's a quote for anybody that wants to say it's not about NIL. I read a quote where he directly talks about being at Georgia State and, hey, the NIL game's not that great. Now, it also doesn't help when you're losing games, but I think it's a little column A, a little column B, and, it's just a gray story, like I said.
He is from South Carolina. He has been on that staff before from 2010 through the time he took the job at Georgia State as a head coach in 2017.
And that is one of the big pieces, is that his family has apparently never moved from South Carolina. They've never come to join him, was one of the things that was pointed out. And so that's kind of like, were you ever really all in? You know what I mean? And
Well,
so
he's been at Georgia State a long time.
Right, but I'm saying one of the things that was pointed out was that your family was back home in South Carolina. You're going back there, so that was part of the pull as well. So I'm just saying that was one of the reasons given as to why you might make this decision.
And also, he was the interim head coach there in 2015, right before he ended up at Georgia State. He ended up being the interim coach for 6 games. Leading to this is the story that, in fact, Coach Doug Samuels had. The Elliott resigning at Georgia State means the 23-24 cycle is now officially tied as the most active head coaching change cycle, since 2008, 31 total FBS head coaches have changed. 2012, there were 31 that year too. Now, this doesn't mean because of the possibility of the way college is now, but it's the first time in 12 years or so that many coaches have changed, at least in there. Who knows, maybe there'll be 1 or 2 more between now and the start of next season.
There's a lot of people that have agendas for whatever reasons they might have agendas. I think that there is a side that wants to paint this as, oh my God, NIL is the death knell and it's ruining college football. Look at this, all these head coaches that are stepping down and taking lesser jobs because they can't handle it. I think that's a little bit too extreme. I also think to pretend like NIL doesn't have something to do with some of these guys saying, you know what, screw this, is a weird stance to take as well, because it absolutely does. Because I can tell you right now, if it was me, I don't care how much money I'm making, that would wear you down. I mean, that would wear you down. And certainly, this could be a situation where you see the writing on the wall and you decide, I'll beat that out. But you sure waited a while to make that decision, didn't you? And that's just odd, the timing of it all.
He's taken him to 5 bowl games in 7 years, although he's never really had much of a successful 9 or 10 win season.
Sure, and there's also the debate that can be had of well, what are your expectations at Georgia State? Okay, are you expecting to win 9 games every year? Is that the threshold that's supposed to be met, or are we being realistic and saying, hey, that's actually a pretty good run, and that's acceptable at Georgia State? I think that's part of where everybody's still trying to figure out what success is now and what is to be expected and what you can be realistic about when it comes to your head coaches and your records and what that's going to look like. And that's going to be fascinating to see in this new era where everything is so different when it comes to the playoff, and you don't have to have 1 loss and 1 loss only, or maybe a 2, maybe to get into a playoff. You're going to have some 2-loss teams in the playoff. It's just a matter of who gets left out there. But, yeah, I think it's awfully interesting, just the timing and the move and all of that. But you can see some clear reasons of why that was attractive. And it's also very fair and not at all wrong to wonder if this isn't another example of the NIL deal. So, it's been interesting to kind of see a battle line drawn black and white over kind of that NIL and the head coaching effect debate. But I reside squarely in the middle for right now until we see more evidence one way or the other, because I do think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's there, but it's not yet a long enough trend where you can say this is what's going on.
Also, look, we're seeing the great reset as it goes all over the place and a lot of different things. And what this ultimately will be is, it'll work itself out to where the people who are who don't want to be at schools like Georgia State, or that NIL is too hard, especially places there, do what Coach Elliott did and go to South Carolina. And then there's going to be the younger guys that, look, I have a great opportunity to be a head coach. If it's starting out at Georgia State, I'm going to be there and see where it goes. So the river always flows in the place that it's going to wind up, right? And it just kind of changes.
Where gravity takes it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna go. So right now, we've seen kind of a flurry of things, because especially now with new TV deals kicking in, like if I'm think about it, if I'm Kane Womack and I'm at South Alabama as the head coach, and Kalen DeBoer says, "Hey, do you want to come be my defensive coordinator?" They're like, yeah, I do. I love doing this, but I think I've proven all I can here. This is going to open way more doors for me here in the next couple of years. So yeah, I'm going to do that. And then those things are going to change. It will work itself out. And there are times where yes, it sucks if you have to do this, but ultimately at the end of it, all right, it'll work itself out, and the trends will find out. And if you don't want to put up with NIL and you want to go to the NFL, or you want to take a lesser job, then that's your prerogative and do it.